Hi everyone, Dean here. Just thought I would come out today and talk to you about a piece of gear that I've used quite extensively over the last few years, and quite honestly I've never done a review about. Much like the Ortley back roller pannier bags that I just did a review on, they're kind of a workhorse and you just kind of don't really think about them because there's just never an issue with it. So today I came out to talk to you about my back rack, which is the Bontrager BackRack Deluxe MIK. The MIK stands for the mounting mechanism that you can use with specific bags that utilize the MIK system. I'm not going to get into that. There's other videos out there that you can check out about the MIK mounting mechanisms and how it works, but I'm not going to get into that with this one because I haven't really used it much. I do have a video of a bag I got that is MIK, a Basel bag, but unfortunately it failed. I'll put a link to that up here if you want to check that out, just to avoid that bag altogether. So yeah, I thought I would just talk to you guys about the Bontrager BackRack Deluxe and what I think about it, how it's held up over the years and all that good stuff. All right, so just let's get into the stats right off the bat. The retail price on it Canadian is $80 or $79.99. It comes in two different sizes, one that runs from extra small to medium and then another size that covers medium to extra large. So you just have to determine what size bike you have and make sure you get the right rack for your bike. The weight capacity, which is obviously something that's a really important stat, maybe more than the others for this rack, is 55 pounds, which is actually quite a bit. I know I've gone over that amount and I've had no issues with it whatsoever. The key with if you're going to overload your rack is to really make sure that you check that your bolts are staying tight and just stay on top of that. Adding a little blue Loctite to your bolts when you put them on is a real big help as well. The rack itself is made out of aluminum and it's pretty strong. Like when you pick up the rack, it's really light. But I've used this rack now for well over 25,000 kilometers, probably closer to 30, and I've had zero issues with it coming loose, anything breaking or anything. As you can see, it's very faded and worn from very extensive use. I put it through its paces. One of the other reasons I was hesitant to put a review out is because I've seen a couple other people that kind of made remarks about the Bontrager rack that made it sound like if you're riding on trails, the trails would be littered. The sides of the trails would be littered with broken Bontrager racks, and I don't know. I can only speak from my experience. This rack has been ridden across Canada, and during that time I did the Kettle Valley Rail Trail, which is definitely an off-road bike packing trail, and put it through its paces and there was no issues. Like I said, I definitely had over 60 pounds on that rack for sure, between the two pannier bags and trunk bags. So there was no issues at all ever with the rack, none whatsoever. One other thing I should mention too about Bontrager products, doesn't matter what it is, every Bontrager product comes with a 30-day unconditional guarantee. And I can speak from experience because I worked at a truck store, and it's literally that easy. You have up to 30 days. It doesn't matter what it is, clothing, equipment. There's no questions asked as long as you have your original receipt at the time of return. So, I get a lot of people, that want to like kind of categorize everybody, and either you're a bike packer or you're into touring. And I really don't like that because to me, I do both. There's times where I'm doing full-on bike packing and there's times where I'm on the road doing more traditional touring. But I'm not going to be using the same setup as everybody else. I'm going to keep using a rack like this because it works for me. I know most people think for a traditional bike touring setup, you're supposed to use the bag that comes off the seat. Well, you know what? Like I said, I don't categorize that stuff. I feel like bike packing is more about what you're doing and where you're sleeping at the end of the day than it is the gear you're using. If you're riding on the road 24/7, sleeping in motels all the time, then yeah, you're probably doing a more traditional touring. If you're riding on dirt and camping at the end of the day and cooking your own food at the side of the trail or beside your tent, then you're bike packing. And that's how easy it is for me. I'm not going to get into, oh, you have to have this equipment to be considered this. We're all doing the same thing. We're out traveling and adventuring on our bike. So to me, that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm bike adventuring, and that's probably the best way to label it. So yeah, like I said, I've done everything with this rack. I've had all different kinds of bags on it, trunk bags, pannier bags, and I've never had any issues with it whatsoever. So would I recommend this rack? Yeah, I absolutely would. Like I said, I've heard some people say they've had some issues with it, but like I said, there are two different racks that look almost the same. Make sure if you're looking for the stronger one, you get the BackRack Deluxe. Whether you use the MIK is irrelevant. It works just as well with any other bag, Velcro attachment, or anything else. So as you've seen, I've used my Ortley trunk bag on there with the Ortley quick lock attachment system, and it attaches perfectly fine. I've used the Velcro too with the LG bag, as you'll see here, and it works excellent. So it's a very universal rack, and at $80 and for what I've put it through, I definitely think it's a great bag, and I would 100% recommend anybody looking for a durable rack. Based on my experience, I would say that this rack would serve your purposes. So one thing I want to talk about in regards to durability of a rack is how it's installed. It's very important that the installation is done correctly. One thing I already mentioned was making sure the bolts are tight and maybe adding a little bit of blue Loctite. Don't add red Loctite because that will be really hard to get the bolts off after, but adding a little Loctite and then continually checking them to make sure that they're secure. But more than that, when you're putting the rack on, it's very important to make sure that you're not forcing it on the bike where you're having to push it and then tighten something down, because it's going to create stress on the rack, and then when you hit a bump, it's almost guaranteed to break in that spot. So you want to get the rack on and situate it and in a comfortable spot that's where it wants to sit. As you can see on the Bontrager rack, it's really ideal for that because it has the nice system where you can keep everything loose, and then these two top bolts pivot, and that way you can kind of get it in the exact right position. Some other racks will use aluminum supports that you bend and get in the right spot, but I find those ones are the racks that actually usually break. This Bontrager system is one that I've honestly never seen any failure in regards to this support system. So I just wanted to mention that. Make sure that when you're putting it on, you're not having to twist something into a spot and then tighten it down or do anything like that. You want it to go on there comfortably with no stress on the mounting points whatsoever. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. All right, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. If anybody has anything to add to this or any questions, please let me know in the comments below. I'm looking to do the Great Divide mountain bike in 2024 in July. I'm definitely looking for some support for that. So if you'd like to contribute to the Great Divide mountain bike route cause, there's a couple links in the descriptions below. One is for Buy Me a Coffee, and the other you'll see is for my channel membership. Right beside the subscribe button, there is also a join button that you can click onto that too to get to the channel memberships to see if you'd like to support that. There's different tiers. It's a monthly thing. So honestly, it would be really appreciated if you'd take a second to check that out. But other than that, I hope you guys are doing great and getting out there and doing something you love, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.